Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zoe Muro. And now, here's Zoe.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the New Thought Media Network, and welcome to the show. My name is Zoe Muro. I am a licensed practitioner and a transformational coach, and I am honored, as always, to be your host for Choice, Your Creative Superpower, coming to you from Oakland, California, each Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 12 noon Mountain Time. We are here to explore how you can wield your superpower for the greatest good and co-create your most fulfilling life experience. Hey, Wayne, good to see you. Let's see. So, for those of you who are coming back, great to see you here again. Especially you, Wayne. Always good to see you. And if this is your first time, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. So I mentioned that I'm a religious science practitioner. I'm also a transformational coach. My ministry, both as a minister and as a practitioner, I should say, and as a coach, are to help people live their lives to the fullest. Now, today, in episode 46, we'll be exploring the relationship between choice and courage. Courage. It has to be one of the most poorly understood of human traits. You know, it's become commonplace to associate it with being the opposite of fear. Take a look at this depiction. Okay. This is very typical of what you'll see. The idea that you can either choose a path of fear or you can choose a path of courage. You know, I disagree. I think it's actually more accurate to display it this way. In this case, what I want you to understand is that it is true that you could simply take the path of fear. Absolutely true. However, I think that for most of us, while we might have indeed taken this path to fear at some point in our life, and I also know that there are, unfortunately, some people who live their entire life being ruled by their fears. But I also believe that while there are frightful things that we should be aware of, if they present a clear and present danger, there are also situations in which we have the opportunity to take that fear, to use it, and to move forward from that point. So we work through the fear, as I've depicted it here. Some of it might never leave. Some of it might actually inform us as to how to proceed, which may very well mean that we run for the hills. And some may indeed be overcome completely. Hi, Shay. Good to see you here. Shay is going to be hosting a show here on the New Thought Media Network very soon. She is a fascinating woman. Okay, let's see. Where do I want to go here? Okay, so what is at the heart of courage is the ability to do something that frightens you. I like this quote from Thucydides. The bravest are surely those who have the clearest vision of what is before them, glory and danger alike, and yet, notwithstanding, go out and meet it. So, to start a discussion about courage, we really need to talk about threats, danger, in essence, fear. I did an entire episode on fear and anxiety in January of this year, episode 26, I believe it was. But some of the ideas bear repeating here. For example, there is a difference between fear and anxiety. Take a look at this. Fear is seen as a reaction to a specific observable danger, while anxiety is seen as a diffuse, a kind of unfocused, objectless, future-oriented fear. So think about this. Does it take courage to move through fear? Does it take courage to move through anxiety? Answering purely for myself, I would say yes to both. In fact, at times it can take more courage to move through anxiety because it's so difficult to pinpoint sometimes as to what the origin might be, or even what threat it potentially stems from. So, now that we've spoken about fear, let's talk about choice. Of course, the very first choice is likely to be whether you will allow the fear or anxiety to prevail, or if you'd rather try to work through it. Now, we don't always have that as an option. So give some thought to what you fear. Give some thought to what makes you anxious. Considering how powerful a motivator fear and anxiety can be. It really behooves us as co-creators of our life experience to understand them as best we can. You know, when I work with my clients as either a coach or a practitioner, we often need to look at the origins of beliefs, the origins of the stories we tell, and what impact they have had to this point in our lives. Many times, once the origin of a belief or a fear is known and understood, the way to address it becomes clearer. But it's a choice one has to make, to do the work, to dig into what might have been a part of one's life for years. If you were to look up the biggest fears that people face in life, you'd find many, many different opinions. And of course, you yourself probably have your own idea as to the types of things that you find fearful. Take a look at this list from Psychology Today. These are all, according to Psychology Today, common fears: change and loneliness, failure, rejection, uncertainty. I like this one: something bad happening. It kind of covers all bases, doesn't it? Getting hurt, being judged, inadequacy, loss of freedom. I thought it was interesting that death wasn't listed here, unless that simply comes under something bad happening. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. Here's a second one. this one out, put this one in. There we go. This is also from Psychology Today. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of public speaking, fear of rejection. So we see some commonality here. Making the wrong decision, fear of other people's opinions, responsibility, saying the wrong thing, being exposed as an imposter, commitment. There's a different flavor to a number of these, I think. And I feel that as I look at this list, I think one of the things that differentiates many of these from some of the others is comparison. And a sense of not being as sure of who and whose we are. So if you have an opportunity, it is an interesting exercise to sit down and write up a list of the things that you find fearful. And then to understand where they come from. So it does, to a certain extent, seem counterintuitive to be talking about fear so much because our topic is courage. But remember, without fear of some sort, courage is essentially irrelevant in that situation. For example, I don't need to be courageous to eat a biscuit. Right? Well, if you knew my sister Ellie, then you might feel there was a lot of danger there. I mean, her biscuits were better as weapons than food. I'm serious. If you dropped one of those on your foot, you'd be in agony. Okay, let's get back to our regularly scheduled program here. Sorry, Ellie. Whether fear is a feeling, an emotion, or both is an interesting debate among psychologists and many others. I've seen so many different variations on this and why everyone's insisting it's this or it's that. The one I like the most says that it probably starts off as one or the other, and then the longer it stays, it morphs into the other. But here's something that I found really interesting. This is from a book called Get Out of Your Own Way by Dr. Tom Rusk. What he says is that courage is not a feeling. Courage is the act of doing what one feels is right, despite one's fears. The greater the fear, the greater the courage necessary to overcome it and do the right thing. The greater the fear, the greater the courage necessary to overcome it and do the right thing. So courage is active. It's an action. It's doing something. Now, just as there are numerous types of fears and reactions that they cause in us, so too are there different kinds of courage, which are expressed by different actions. And just to be clear, sometimes it takes courage to not do a particular thing, in which case the act that we're talking about, the act of courage, would be in the abstaining or refraining from saying we're doing something. But that also can be an act of courage. So, as always, we see as a potential choice whether we will choose to act or react to a stimulus, a situation, a condition which we perceive as a potential threat. So let's turn to science for a moment. Let's look at this from an anatomical perspective. Now, I don't want to get into a lot of the detail because it's really, we could spend the entire day talking about this. But the oldest part of our brain, the most primitive part, if you will, is also the part responsible for initial threat assessment. And there are many reasons why we would respond fearfully to one stimulus or trigger and not to another. But our primary concern, it's that it's baked into our DNA, is for survival. I mean, we had to develop as a species to be able to move beyond this very straightforward fight or flight response. We developed higher functions with more discerning analytical capacity. And that allowed us to add in a host of capabilities and perspectives that went far beyond survival. This works for us. And at times, it can work against us in that we can, quote unquote, rationalize almost anything if we so choose to. When we do that, by the way, and we attempt to rationalize something that's really not truly rational, what we're doing is operating out of fear because we're avoiding. Okay. So next time you find yourself doing that overly energetic rationalization, think about what's really going on. An example of the difference between the more primitive portion of the brain and the more advanced portion. Here's a very simple example. Let's say you're hungry. Well, your primitive brain's primary purpose would be to get something to eat, right? However, if we're with another person who's also hungry, our more advanced functions allow us to choose. We might choose to share the food. We may even give the food to them. Our primitive brain had to work on the fear of starvation, right? That's a threat. While our more advanced brain could rationalize alternatives, solutions, make empathetic gestures, recognize that we do indeed have access to what we need. So our choices for how we would act or react grew significantly from something being no threat or a trigger to fight and flight to discernment, assessment, compassion, sacrifice even, right? And on and on. The point being, while we are indeed hardwired to fear, or at least to assess literally everything as being a threat or a non-threat, we are capable of many more choices. Courage. Courage can be seen as being specific to the fear or the threat, whether the fear or threat is real or otherwise. It is a different act of courage to face physical danger, fighting off an assailant, running into a burning building, as opposed to what we might perceive as an emotional threat, being embarrassed or being rejected. And again, it could take courage simply to speak up and speak out. Perhaps the stance that you are espousing is unpopular, or because perhaps you have self-doubt, or you aren't certain of your role in a given situation, or you feel that literally speaking out does put you into a place of not only vulnerability, but a place of danger. The choice to engage is significantly different in each scenario. And while we might be capable of working through the fear in one instance, even a more physically threatening situation, we might pull back from another. I mean, there's no specific standard that says a particular threat carries greater import for everyone under all circumstances. For example, you or I might be unlikely to step into a tiger's lair at the zoo. Zookeepers do so as a daily practice. Now, not every zookeeper, but the ones who work with the tigers. The same zookeeper who is perfectly at home working with the tigers in their cage, you might find giving a speech at a meeting of zookeepers as being terrifying. Okay? That is where that person's fear was. It's highly likely that we can all appreciate the fear of failure in one way or another. Right? But think about how you could bring about a more courageous approach to dealing with it. When we fear the unknown, we can find courage in information, dispelling falsehoods, and understanding the truth. So we choose to examine, to explore, uncover, and define whatever is appropriate. When we fear the known, different strategy here, we can find courage through actually creating a plan, through strategizing, through preparing. When we fear judgment or rejection, it's very tempting to focus outward on the other person or persons involved rather than oneself. But the courage we need to prevail is going to be found within, in our own experiences, in our own beliefs, and in our mindset. Choosing to develop and enhance our knowledge, our self-confidence, and our self-efficacy are key to the breadth and the depth of our courage. When we fear success, it's imperative to understand just what it is that we really see as the threat, the vulnerability. I'm sure it's not the success itself, but more likely what we believe will be expected of us next, or as a result of that success. Will we be expected to reproduce the same level of capability? Will we be given more and more difficult tasks? Or do we fear that we succeeded through luck and we actually doubt our abilities? Denigrating one's own abilities as being something, quote unquote, anyone could have done. That's really downplaying your success. There are many times people fall prey to this without considering that if anyone could have done it, someone would have. Oh, wait, that someone was you. Own it. Celebrate it. By the way, there's a real benefit in that owning, in that celebration. Because seeing the courage that it takes to succeed pay off actually helps strengthen one's self-confidence, strengthen one's sense of self-efficacy. It's a double success. It is a true win-win. We've spoken about mindset many times on this show, and it's especially important to recognize the place that mindset plays in your choices regarding courage. So there are basically two major types of mindsets, is what's called fixed mindset and the growth mindset. A fixed mindset sees the fear of failure as a giant stop sign. A growth mindset sees the effort as a success. and the so-called failure as an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to adapt and to proceed. Put another way, it takes courage to fail and try again. That choice to persist is another key contributor to courage. I spoke earlier of the importance of uprooting falsehoods, which can limit our choices and limit our ability to be courageous. I want to emphasize here the importance of recognizing and holding close the truth of who and whose each of us is. We were created to thrive. We were given as our birthright all that we need to succeed. Remember that each of us was created from the same God stuff as the brightest star, the mightiest creature, the most delicate, intricate crystal. Within our spiritual DNA is perfection, wholeness, completeness. Let that knowledge support you, invigorate you. Allow your courage to shine and propel you to your greatest good. And remember, when you achieve or move more closely towards your greatest good, the benefit to the world is real as well. I wanted to end today's exploration with a quote, but I have to end it with two different quotes. Now, the first one, I found at least a half dozen variations of this one by at least as many authors. But I'll use the one I believe to be the first of its kind. This one is from Aristotle. Let me see. Who said, "Courage is the first of human qualities because it is the quality which guarantees the others." Yeah. It does take courage from many of the things that we hold dear. But this is the other one that I really enjoyed. And I think this one has to go up on the wall. It takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. You know, in New Thought, we recognize our divinity. We recognize who and whose we are. The idea of growing up, we grow into our reality. We grow into who we really are. And it does take courage. Well, I think that's going to do it for today. I would love to hear your thoughts around choice and courage. Oh, come to think of it, here's one now. Hi, Shay. Oh, you're very welcome. You do indeed have lots and lots of courage. I know aspects of your life. And yes, courage is absolutely something to be grateful for. No question. Oh, without a doubt, Wayne, fortune does indeed favor the bold. Absolutely. Let's see. So, any thoughts that you have around choice and courage, by all means, send me an email at zodemuro@gmail.com. Let me get that. There we go. Okay, so you can connect with me here, zodemuro@gmail.com. I would love to discuss any of this with you. I also am a coach, as I mentioned, and I do coach people to help them reach their greatest to be. So, is there something that you would like to discuss in a future episode? Something that you would like to see me explore? Something related to choice that you think would make an interesting topic? Let me know. Once again, zodemuro@email.com. Now, I greatly appreciate that you've spent your time with me this week, but I also want you to go to ntmedia.org, and I want you to see what else there is out there today. So, for example, 12 noon Pacific time, 1 p.m. Mountain time, Finding the Joy in the Journey with the amazing Reverend Gina Calvario-Krupka. And our special guest today is Reverend Benjamin Burchall. Burchall, Burchall. At 1 p.m. Pacific time, which is 2 p.m. Mountain time, there's the Vibrant Living Hour with the ever vibrant practitioner Ken Ludwig. And of course, 7:15 p.m. Pacific time, 8:15 p.m. Mountain time, evening prayers. Whatever it is that you're looking for, whether it's prayer, meditation, information, discussion, we've got it here on the New Thought Media Network. And it does indeed take time and talent to present all this, but it also takes treasure as well. If you can, go to ntmedia.org, find that donate button, and help us make this a world that works for everyone. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until we meet again, know that you are courageous. Know that every time that you stand up for who you are, you're courageous. Every time you stand up for someone else who would not have that support, who would not have that understanding, you are courageous. Much love and many, many blessings. Namaste.
Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zo DeMuro.